Hi everybody, this is Joe Miller with Pray for Pensacola with a 5-minute short teaching on the motive behind fasting. Why do we fast? Maybe that's the question you're asking right now. Joe, why do I want to fast for my city? Why do we fast? Is it important for Christians to fast? Well, let me talk very briefly about the motive behind fasting. One of the first statements that Jesus spoke about in the New Testament related to fasting was out of Matthew 6, verses 16. And he said this, when you fast. He didn't say if you fast or if you feel like fasting, but he said this, when you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show men they are fasting. I tell you the truth, they have received their reward in full. But again, he says, when you fast, put oil on your head, wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to men that you are fasting, but only to your Father who is unseen, and your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. The important part to notice about this passage is the statement, when you fast. Jesus was taking for granted that we as believers would fast at some point in our spiritual growth. There's another passage that you may be familiar with in the Bible that it talks about where the Pharisees came to Jesus and said, why don't your apostles or your disciples fast? The disciples of John fast, the disciples of us fast, the Pharisees, we fast, but you don't fast. And Jesus said to them, he said, can the friends of the bridegroom mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? But the days will come when the bridegroom will be taken away from them, and then they will fast. When he was talking about the bridegroom, he was talking about himself. He is the bridegroom, and he was saying that I'm here on the earth right now, and so my disciples aren't fasting. But there's going to come a point where I will be taken away. And when I'm no longer here, the disciples will fast. Why is it that they're going to fast? Why will they fast? What is the motive? Well, according to John Piper, in a book called A Hunger for God, he states that fasting at its very root is a hunger of homesickness for God. In other words, people will fast, or the disciples will fast, because Jesus has left, and we have an anticipation that he will come back. This is very similar to a young man being in love with a girl. If this has ever happened to you, you'll find when you're in love, especially for the first time, that you lose your appetite. All you can think about is your girlfriend. You want to call her, you want to talk to her, you want to text message her, you want to be with her. There's this hunger for her. And given the opportunity of going out to this very expensive restaurant or being with your girlfriend at McDonald's, you'll always choose McDonald's because there's a desire to be with her. Well, what God is saying is that when the bridegroom gets taken away, there's going to be a hunger and an expectation to see him. The motive is out of hunger and desire to be with him. One of the interesting things about fasting is that, of course, it's the abstaining of food, but we do it in anticipation of what is to come. Look at that and compare that to Holy Communion or Holy Eucharist. When we eat the bread or drink the cup, we do this in remembrance. We eat food to remember good times. We eat food and drink the cup to remember our experience with Jesus, to remember that he is the body, he is the bread, and his body was broken for us. So we do this in remembrance. We get together on Thanksgiving in order to remember, and we eat a lot of food. We get together on Christmas with family and relatives, and we enjoy memories and good times. Well, the thing about fasting is when we remove food, we're no longer remembering and thinking about good times in past. We're now removing food from our lives, and we're hungering after. We're anticipating Jesus showing up to our own personal lives, showing up to our situation, showing up to our church, showing up, in this situation, to our city, to Pensacola, to our county, to our region. We are fasting for 40 days with Pray for Pensacola, starting February 22nd until April 3rd, because we desire to see Jesus come back to this city. We want to see him in the school systems. We want to see him up and down the streets. We want to see him downtown, in Cantonment, in Brownsville, in Escambia County, all over Santa Rosa County. We want to see him show up. Because when we enter into hard times, I'll be honest with you, there really is nowhere else to look. We take a lot for granted in this country. We take for granted maybe our jobs, our homes, our this, our that, our cars. A lot of things are taken for granted. But if you've seen the news, we're entering into some very difficult times. And it's in times like this that we must return. We must hunger. We must anticipate the return of Jesus back to our lives, back to what we need. in order for us to have clarity, to have understanding, to have a worldview that's biblically based. So I'd like to invite you, as you're watching this, to partake, to go to our website, prayforpensacola.com, download the calendar, take a look at what we're doing for the next 40 days, and be a part of it. Anticipate what Jesus is going to do in your life and in the life of this city. Thank you.